The audio you're about to hear was recorded in Anchor. Learn more at anchor.fm.
You're listening to Pretty Dece, the bite-sized audio blog about games, comics, movies, and more, featuring news, reviews, opinions, and impressions. So if you're a geek, we hope you think it's Pretty Dece. What's up, everybody? You're listening to Pretty Dece for April 3rd, 2017, and Adult Swim pulled the coolest April Fool's prank that I've ever seen, in that they didn't prank us at all. The joke was that it wasn't a joke. They debuted the premiere first episode of Rick and Morty Season 3. The long-awaited Season 3. It's been over a year and a half. The joke is that it's never gonna come. They've really been teasing some, internal strife in this show. There's the kind of behind the scenes and doing all kinds of sort of like bait and switches on when Season 3 is actually going to happen. And yeah, come to find out, April Fool's Day rolled around and Adult Swim just started streaming Rick and Morty Season 3 Episode 1. It seemed as if it was going to be a joke, but no, it was the full episode. Everything was there. So yeah, the best April Fool's joke is when they don't actually pull a prank on you whatsoever. It is the most shocking outcome on April Fool's Day. So I watched the episode. I'm a huge Rick and Morty fan. First of all, a little backstory there. I'm a big fan of anything Dan Harmon does. He's the creator of Community, the co-creator of Rick and Morty here. And I think Rick and Morty is a show that it's very funny. It's also very, very smartly written. And this episode is a perfect example of just how smart Rick and Morty is. There is so much that happens in this episode. And I'll do my best to not give much away if you haven't seen it yet. Just if you are a Rick and Morty fan, do yourself a favor, go check this episode out before, you get spoiled on kind of what happens and everything that goes down in it, because there's some really, really cool stuff. So, we'll kind of talk in generalities about it a little bit here. First of all, Nathan Fillion is a guest star on the show. He plays one of the alien characters, so you get to have a little Nathan Fillion time. And you even get Nathan Fillion doing his best Rick impression, which is actually really, really funny. He does a really, really good Rick. This has actually been a big week for Nathan Fillion. He was also, he's in Destiny, and he was featured pretty heavily in the Destiny 2 reveal trailer. So yeah, the past week or so have been good for Nathan Fillion lending his voice to things. He's really good in this as well. I think he fits in really well. He plays the character that he's playing very well. It's kind of similar to some roles he's played before, but it's really good. Yeah, he's a welcome addition to the show here. And yeah, we get to see, the one thing I like about sort of later episodes of Rick and Morty is we get to see Morty being smarter, being more decisive, being in charge of things. I like what we've seen, that very slow evolution of Morty as he has gone on adventure after adventure with Rick. We've seen him become, able to take charge. We see him put his foot down and tell Rick what's up. We see him, lay the law down for Rick at various points. And in this episode, we see him try to stand up and be the patriarch, the family man, to kind of tell Summer, hey, it's okay, it'll be fine. He tries to kind of talk her down, and then later you find out, yeah, it's okay, yeah, he was always on Rick's side. He was just trying to, benefit Summer here. Speaking of Summer, we also get to see her go, she, over the course of the series, she's gone from just the super typical teenage girl always on her phone, that stereotype, to kind of the most real hero in the family. And this episode is a perfect example of that, where she's gonna give up nothing to track Rick down, and she hasn't given up hope on him like seemingly the rest of the family has. So it's really cool to see she actually has the biggest heart, and she's the biggest hero of all of them. That's really cool that they have morphed her character in that way. This episode, we also get a really cool callback to the Cronenberg universe. So, if you aren't super up on your Rick and Morty history, this is when Rick and Morty essentially destroy their world, their actual universe, so they escape it and go to an alternate reality where the versions of themselves in that reality have just gotten themselves killed. And other than that, the worlds are exactly the same, and they slip in and take over the lives of the Rick and Morty that were just killed. So the characters, the Summer, the Beth, all of the characters that we see, on a daily episode are actually the second versions of all of those characters. The original versions, the ones that belonged to the world that Rick and Morty destroyed, are still around. And this is the Cronenberg universe where everything's kind of turned into a crazy monster. We actually get to go meet those guys again in this world. We get to go to crazy, feral people. We get to see Jerry lay down the law while not wearing a shirt and carrying a sword and stuff. That's really cool. I'm amazed and I'm kind of happy that we get a callback to that stuff, because that point where they take over kind of that alternate world is the first time Rick and Morty makes you go oh wow, they're doing some things here. And this episode we get a lot more of that type of thing, sort of, brain jumping, taking over lives kind of stuff. And I really like when they go in that kind of direction with Rick and Morty. It's really, really good. Speaking of the Cronenberg universe, it's really impressive how continuity has become so important to this show. It could very easily just be a show about gags, and there's really not a ton of running continuity other than just hey, we're going on adventures every week and see what happens. But this episode is the perfect indication of oh man, we've woven this crazy interlocking chain of characters and chain of events, and everything matters, and something from seasons ago is going to pop up and become a huge feature in an episode, or even if it's just going to get referenced, it's just going to be a gag. It all kind of is interwoven together, which you wouldn't have really expected from Rick and Morty when it first debuted. You wouldn't have thought it was going to be that type of show, but it really, really has become that. We get to see more of the Council of Ricks in this episode, which I really like. The Council of Ricks. We get to see a lot of different types of Rick, so that's always fun when you go meet the Council of Ricks. We got to see Black Rick. We got to see a Lizard Man Rick. You got to see a Rick that was just a fish. You got to see a Rick that was Morty. It was Morty Rick. So it was he was dressed like Rick but looked like Morty, had the yellow shirt on like Morty, which was really interesting. And then of course we get to the ending of this episode. The ending was really dark, so I won't spoil exactly what happened, but the connotations of it and kind of the directions they could go with it for the rest of season 3 are wild. So I don't know. I've read some theories already that maybe this whole first episode didn't happen. We're still in Rick's mind, and this is just sort of a figment of his imagination. If this actually did happen, then yeah, there's some crazy stuff going on. So I'm really excited to see kind of where they take it and what they do and how they fix things, if they do fix things, or if this is just some weird new status quo that we're heading down. It's certainly interesting. So that's vague enough. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, go check out Rick and Morty season 3 episode 1, because it is pretty decent. So that's going to do it for us for this week. Thank you very much for joining us. If you like the show, please favorite us in Anchor. You will hear all of our daily episodes every single day as they come out. They'll be first there in your list in the app. If you want to tell me what you thought about the Rick and Morty season premiere, if you want to tell me about anything else, please call into the show. There's a call-in button right in Anchor as you're listening. Press the call-in button, record your message, and it will get sent to me and it'll show up in my app. Finally, if you would like to support the show and keep up with the show, please